Welcome to the Lock Shop with Nielson and Hustler, powered by Coolbet Canada.
Happy Wednesday, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Lock Shop. Tell your friends about it. Dusty and Hus ready to go, getting you set for another week on the links. We'll get to that. Pat Gregoire from Coolbet's going to pop by for a little discussion on that. He was with me last week on Ricky Fowler, and there's always pressure to go back to back. So we'll dive into that, and we'll get Hus's picks obviously as well. Nice little board that you put together this week. But we've got some things to discuss from yesterday's Lock Shop, don't we, Hus? Your boy, a hero for the people.
Not even Mother Nature could actually triumph over Joey Chestnut. the sight of Coney Island, all those long faces after the cancellation of the Nathan's hot dog eating contest, and Joey Chestnut coming out of the green room to greet his fans saying, "We're not leaving. We're gonna
get this fucker done." Like, just legendary stuff.
Let us eat. And he did say with the thunderstorms in the area, there was no way records were going to be broken. I mean, your under on the 72.5 was, it wasn't even close.
No.
But again, I don't mind not winning the over bet on Joey Chestnut, just knowing that freedom prevailed and the contest did go on. And we got to hear George Shea's annual introduction of arguably the greatest athlete of our lifetime.
Man, I didn't listen to that yet. That used to be we'd play it every morning on our show the morning after, but I haven't. Was it good? I got to track it down.
It was incredible. And I'll tell you what, if you want, for fans of Joey Chestnut and more so for fans of George Shea, the orator of our time, go to The Ringer. TheRinger.com has an article up on it says it's called The Real Star of 4th of July or whatever, and it's about George Shea, and it has his top 10 intros of all time, like a YouTube clip of all.
That would be good.
Book off half an hour and sit down with that and thank me later for it, folks.
That's what it'll take for sure. That's at The Ringer. It's available at The Ringer.
Yeah, TheRinger.com. It's
right,
on
good.
The Ringer. Try and tweet it out.
Yeah, definitely. We got to get a look at that. And then Ohtani yesterday, man, the Angels, they got Trout on the IL, and then Ohtani leaves yesterday's game. What a disaster right now for these guys.
You know, I had the strikeout prop, and we had that double.
I was on the exclusive too. Yeah.
And, he had 5 strikeouts going into the 6th inning. It was a 2-1 game. He gave up a single right off the bat, no big deal. Then a homer. And right after the homer, apparently he came in with a cracked fingernail or something like that. And anyways, he was taken out of the game. So, yeah, unfortunately, that did not happen for Ohtani. However, I did unload pretty big on the Jays last night. And shout out to Vladdy for coming up big. The Jays have just needed those big hits. They haven't been there very much this season.
Yeah.
That bomb was a big one. And oh my God, I felt sorry for the guys on the White Sox batting against Romano. He had some guys that obviously could not hit a slider. And it was just White Castle after White Castle over again. The last strikeout was almost unfair, but big for the Blue Jays because they can't beat teams in their own division right now. So you better get it done against the AL Central. Big win for them to start off that series last night.
Yeah, no, that was a big win for sure. No shout out for George Springer, who did not get the over 1.5 total bases. In fact, he had 0 total bases in that game, going 0 for 5, and that was my pick yesterday. So
never mind that. It actually got worse. At one point, he was playing a foul ball that hit off the net and smoked him in the jaw as well. So it was not the Blue Jays won. Wasn't a great day for George Springer.
All right, let's bring in Pat Gregoire from Coolbet just to find out how much action they did have on that Nathan's famous hot dog eating contest yesterday. Patty, what's up, buddy?
Not much, fellas. Freedom reigns supreme as our man Joey Chestnut saves the day, saves America. He should be running for office. We should get odds up on Coolbet for him to be the next president. But after yesterday's performance, obviously the overbetters not pleased. Dusty, that is dirty money going against.
I know.
Jaws on July 4th is an absolute sin. But again, obviously, you look at the delay, you look at the rain, slow buns. It was a recipe for the under. So a good bet on you. The money was also, you can see the under was coming. The number kept dropping, and that's quote unquote the sharp money. So that kind of just goes to show you that there is legitimate money on this event. It's not just Haas and I, over analyzing if the buns are fast or
I know.
slow.
I was just gonna say when you said slow buns, buddy, you killed me. I love the fast buns, slow buns references. It's so good.
It's real, man. It's real. And but yeah, no, it was a good day. It was a good day for the book for the most part. Our exclusives, obviously, or sorry, I shouldn't say exclusive, but we even had quite a bit of action on Chestnut to break that record. I believe it was up at 230, 250. And I think if we don't get that delay and the weather's not so hot and humid, I think he touches it. So a lot of hot takes saying he's washed, he's done.
What?
I think
guys,
next year.
It's funny you brought that up because I was just going to say, I'm not going to say he's washed. I'm not going to say he's done. But I am going to go on the record here today on July 5th and say Joey Chestnut's best days are behind him. I don't see him setting the new record at any point. I'm sorry, boys.
76 hot dogs and buns is a number that will live forever until the next future superstar of Major League Eating comes along. I don't want to live in a world that's true. I mean, do you want a quote for July 5th? I'll be ponying up 364 days from right now on the over again for the greatest of all time.
My God.
I'll be with you. I'll be with you right away. I'd be 6 feet under before I bet the under against the Glizzy Gladiator. Like, there's just no way. You can't do it. And this is just another chip on his shoulder. Last year, he was dealing with the injury. He was on crutches. It was the worst performance we've seen in years. Follows it up again, but it's the delay. It's like the world is out
and
against
the slow
Joey
buns
Chestnut.
and everything. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, boys, this is too good. I wish he was eating hot dogs every weekend. I'm not gonna lie, it'd be great. Oh man. All right. Look, last week it worked out well, Patty. You and I were on Ricky Fowler, and Ricky Fowler finally got it done. So that was a nice dub. And you and I were texting this morning, and it's like John Deere Classic is not a great field, but I said to Pat Huss, we've had these text messages before. I said it's pretty sad because the field's weak, but there's a few guys that I really love this week. It's so bad to get really excited about Shank, like it drives me nuts. But here we are, Patty, and there's ways to find pretty good value on a week like this.
There certainly is. And I think usually these are the type of tournaments where you look a little bit further down the board, or you look in the middle of the board, which is no doubt true. That's where you can get the value. But for me, I spend a lot more time at the top of the board than I probably would like to admit. And we'll start at the top of the board with Russell Henley at 16-1. But this guy has been in great form this year, especially as of late. He has, top 10 finishes in 8 of his last 9 stroke play events, which includes a T4 at the Masters and a T14 at the US Open. So this is a guy that obviously can compete when the best players are in the field. Well, what does it say when it's a field like we're seeing this week? He already has a win this year. He doesn't really bomb it off the tee, but this is a golf course where you don't need to be long. He's super accurate. He's actually the most accurate driver on tour, which certainly is going to help the entire tour. So that is certainly something that's going to play. I don't know if this comes into play, but just when I was diving into some numbers, he's the number 1 player in scrambling from the fringe. So I don't know if it comes into play this week. I just thought that was pretty interesting to throw in there. I don't not love the number. Every week I come in here and saying, I don't love betting the outright favorite, but I'm going to do it again because last week it worked with Ricky. I think that Henley is one of, if not the hottest golfer in this field. And he's got a lot of great history here. Course history is another thing I spend talking a lot when I come on this show. He has a T11 back in 2011 and a runner-up in 2019. His career scoring average at TPC Deere Run is 67.42. And out of players that have played 2 rounds or more, that is the best here. Course history, recent form, you add those 2 together, and usually it revolves around in a good result. So that's why I like Henley. Don't love the number, but just love the spot here for him. Another guy, Ludwig Aberg. You've heard me talk about him quite a bit, and I know he fell off a cliff on the weekend, but it's crazy to say with him only being 4 or 5 starts in his young PGA career tour career. This guy might be the most talented golfer in the field. And that is insane to say. But when you have these weaker fields, sometimes you just got to say, forget the value and find the best golfers. I think you can really make a strong case that that is him. And here's 2 things. One, he's a rookie. So he's not taking this week off. This isn't something that he has to come. Like, he needs to prove that he is worth the hype. And also, believe it or not, there's a lot of people talking about this guy being on the Ryder Cup team. If he wants to make that team, he's got to pick up a win, or he's got to pick up a runner-up or a T5 down the stretch here to get into that conversation. And what better opportunity for the young Swede than a very weak field at a course with his skill set that he could potentially eat this thing up.
I love both of those guys. One of them's on Hustler's card. The other one's on mine. I mean, you're speaking our language right now, P. Greg.
I'll go through a couple other ones a little more quickly. Adam Schenk, you mentioned his name already. 28-1. Again, course history. T4 in 2021, T6 in 2020. Little Jekyll and Hyde this season, but he has 4 top 10 finishes this year. When he's on, he is on. He actually almost had a win this year. I think it was the Charles Schwab where he lost to Grillo in that playoffs. The one thing I don't like about Schenk is that his name is Schenk and he's a golfer. That is bad vibes from the get-go.
What would be great though, Patty, is winning money on a golfer named Schenk. That's just great. So
Exactly. Another guy I like who's been really, strong, steady this year. A little bit further down the board, Eric Cole, 33-1. He's already finished. I believe it was a solo finish in second at the Honda Classic. He's also had that great finish at the Canadian Open where he finished in the top 10. He had shot that 63 on Sunday, putting him right in the mix. He's absolutely nails with a flat stick in his hand. I believe he's 17th in stroke gain putting and in the top 5 for total putting average and total putting average. I thought his number was going to be a little bit better, but I'm not going to complain getting him at 33-1. And sometimes these quote unquote easier tracks, and when there's not a ton of guys on tour, sometimes it's whoever's putter can get the hottest. And I think Eric Cole is right now one of the best putters on tour. And at 33-1, I really like that number. Last, certainly not least, my longest shot of them all, the veteran, Chez Reavie. He has been very, very solid as of late. T29 last week after coming off T4, where realistically, if he doesn't melt down on Sunday, he's right in the mix and probably, maybe gives Keegan Bradley a little bit of a run for his money, or at least maybe finish T2 or 3. Still, he found a way to at least finish in that top 10. So I really, really like Chez Reavie for a top 20 bet, maybe even a top 10 bet, but a little sprinkle at 65-1.
What do we got for exclusives this week, Patty? There's got to be a bunch over there. Hey,
there is.
Let me golf special already up. I feel like with what you just said. I know we're going to come together nicely on a partner parlay here, but we'll give our picks a little bit later on. But what are we looking at exclusives already?
Yeah, I got to pull up the exclusives here. So maybe you guys go throw out your picks.
I got her here. Let's see here. You can bring up the exclusives. Hus, look. I'll just say Pat hit 2 of my guys. I'm on Schenk, who we talked about. I mean, he laid out the good point series, finished top 6 twice at this event. I love Henley this week. doubling down on the theory of in a weaker field, go with one of the favorites who's been playing extremely well, which Henley has. So I like him. I don't even hate the number at 16-1 for a favorite. I think that's pretty good value there. And then the other guy I'm going to throw in here with my 3 picks actually will be Chris Kirk. And Kirk is interesting. He hasn't played in this event since 2018, but prior to that, he played in it 6 times and had 3 top 25s. He was 7th last week, and no, he wasn't 7th last week. He was 14th last week, and looked excellent from tee to green last week. So here's a guy who's had some success at this event before. He would be a little bit further down. He's 33-1, but I'll add Kirk to my Henley and Schenk picks to round out my top 3, Huss. And you might as well whip us through your 3, and then we can look at some exclusives and put together a little parlay here.
Well, it's hilarious because the Greggy Golf special is literally what I was going to suggest we put for the Lock Shop Partner Parlay. So he might have beaten us to the punch. Listen, I've got a lot of time for Henley. I moved a little bit down the board though, and I'm going to ride with the Canadian Adam Hadwin. And listen, I see some now. Ricky Fowler's had an unbelievable season. I think we all know that. He has been so consistent, top 10s, top 5s. He's been right there. And when you looked at the field for the Rocket Mortgage, you thought, okay, this sounds and looks like the spot for Ricky to win. And he got it done. But I mean, listen, he had to do it in a playoff, birdie 18, and beat Morikawa, a top 10 player in the world, and of course, Adam Hadwin, who's been playing really well. When I look at this field of who's there right now, I get the same sort of feeling for Hadwin than I had for Ricky Fowler going into last week, that it's his time to win. He was right there last week. He's hitting the ball incredibly well. If he can get on just a little bit of a putting heater, I think his game all around right now is set to go toe-to-toe with anybody in this field right now. So, I mean, if you're going to give me a 28-1 on Hadwin, albeit, I mean, tied with Grillo at 5-6, and then Moore and Schenk. Listen, I mean, obviously it's fun to cheer for a guy that's a Canadian as well, but I think there's a lot of reasons when you look at Adam Hadwin, the season he's had so far, that it's winning time for the Canadian. Listen, he made the cut at the U.S. Open, but didn't play great. But right before that, he was right in the mix at the RBC Canadian Open as well, and of course had that second in the Zurich event, and even earlier than that, a T13 at the Players, T10 at the Waste Management, T7 in Houston. He's contended so far this year, and to me, this is the best chance all year for Adam Hadwin to get into the winner's circle. So I jumped on him at 25-1. And listen, I'm with you, Pat. I am not psyched out by Aberg's ugly weekend last week in Detroit. If anything, I think that a young player like that, it almost makes him more focused, more hungry to come out with a great start and to continue that through. He absolutely has the game. I think that if we look at this same field, if this field was next year, like 12 months at the time, we're probably talking about Aber going off as an 8 or 9-1 favorite against these guys. I think he's just that good. And you know what? Sometimes you got to have a stumble or two, which he certainly did on the weekend, to get back in the winner's circle. So 25-1 on Aberg, 28-1 on Hadwin. And Hadwin was my favorite play. But moving down the board, I did drop a little sprinkle at 50-1 on Sepp Straka. And Sepp Straka is a player that has really, I mean, he won the Honda Classic. He was third at the Heritage. Again, these were last year. He went on a long string of missed cuts and then came back, and he's been way more consistent lately. Let's not forget, he was 7th at the PGA. I mean, his results since then, he's missed one cut. He was 16th at the Memorial. And then, sort of 29, 38 wasn't particularly great. He like Aberg had an ugly weekend in Detroit, but started off 68, 66. For a guy that has won before on tour, even this year lost in a playoff in the first event at Sanderson, I think he'll go out there and look at this field going, why not me? I mean, I've got the game at 50-1. I figured that it was worth a little bit of a sprinkle. But as I said, Hadman's my favorite play. I'm on Aberg as well. And 50-1 on Sepstrak, I think, is worth the swing if you're looking for a guy at 50 or more to 1.
So my two leans, and I'm glad you brought up Hadwin, because I think, as I mentioned about like the most talented golfers in this field, I think you have to put Hadwin up there when he's on his game. Again, putting contest, sometimes that's what this turns into, or approaching. Those are by far his best two parts to his game. And you talked about it. He is absolutely flushing it right now. I didn't end up betting him. I had too many guys that I liked around that same price. But with that being said, I am now going to probably bet him. Another guy that I was really close to betting, and it is probably the complete opposite of what I normally look into with recent form, but Cam Young. You want to talk about the most talented golfer in this field?
Yeah, he could fit
it's
that
him
bill. Yeah.
by leaps and bounds. I know it's not a course where mashing it off the tee really doesn't matter. And that's what his best game is. But he has not looked good in the last, let's say, month, 2 months. He hasn't looked anything like himself, considering last year, this is a guy that came onto the scene and was right in the mix in multiple majors. But I just think that if there's a time for this guy to turn it around, would it not be this tournament? If it doesn't turn it around here, maybe it's like pack it in for the year. And I don't know if like we ever see him come back to form this year, and we'll see if he can get back to it next year. With that being said, because he is so good, I still think that the number isn't as good as it probably should be because of how bad he's been playing. But I think the book recognizes that if he can turn on his game, if he can even be 75% of what we've seen in the past, he could run away with this thing.
Yeah, it's wild thinking about where he was last year, and he's still waiting for that win. But I mean, last year on the season, he had 5 T2s.
Yeah, man.
2
Yeah,
T3.
he was great last year, man.
Ryder Cup as well. So, like, again, I think we're buying low on Cam Young.
Yeah.
Even though the number is what it is, because any other event, and I'll tell you what, this is a guy. I mean, he made it to the finals of the match play and got smoked by Sam Burns. You'd have to think that for the guys that haven't got a win yet, and there's always a guy that's who's the best player that hasn't won yet. He's certainly in that conversation. And while his recent play has not given many people much confidence, I think that's the reason why he's not a clear favorite in this field.
Yeah.
And if you think that he can turn around, maybe he is a guy to put a little sprinkle on right now.
Yeah, I'm just looking at it. If he had that T7 at the Masters, but after that T51, T59, cut, T56, T32, and T60. It's been ugly as of late. But with that being said, he's played 17 events. He's made the cut 15 times. He still has 3 top 10 finishes and 6 top 25 finishes. So I think he can tap dance his way into a top 20. And I think it's at minus 110. So even with him playing poorly or averagely, I think he could, with this field, I still think that, top 25 is not out of the question for this guy.
Hus mentioned the P. Greggy golf special, and he's right. I mean, that is probably what we ended up going with. Pat, what do you got at a 12-1? Who do you got in there?
Yeah, so it's Aberg, Henley, and Hadwin all to finish in the top 20 at 12-1. Really like this number. We talked about all 3 of these guys at length. I don't think we really need to dive into it a little more. But before we build ours, I'll go over a couple of the other ones that I really like. Young and Shank both to finish in the top 10, 13-1. Big fan of that. And then some Canadian flavor also with the US LPGA Open going on right now. Any Canadian player to win either that event or the John Deere, 10-1. So you're getting Brooke Henderson in the mix as well. And another one, Hadwin and Henderson, both to finish in the top 5 of their respective events, 65-1. That's an auto play for me. Cheering for Canada.
65-1. Yeah, for
65-1.
I'm going to get on that right now. Done.
Get on it now because it's going to move because we obviously there you go because we obviously know how well Hadwin's been playing and obviously Brooke Henderson's been up and down, but at these big major events it seems like that's when her best game comes into form, and she's just a bright lights type of player.
Well, Hus, what should we put together here? I mean, we can take some of that action, but
I mean, put it this way, the Gregoire golf special is right there. I guess if we wanted to, there's another interesting one, Cam Young and Shank, excuse me, plus 13 or 13-1 plus 1,300 to hit the top 10. I mean, obviously flying the Canadian flag, love that Hadwin Henderson combo to both be in the top 5 at 65-1. That's something that I could get up. I mean, I've got Aberg, I've got Hadwin. I mean, if we wanted to put something in on Straka, otherwise, I think maybe we just kind of support the Gregoire golf special as that's the Lock Shop.
So
those are the guys that we wanted to bet.
What if we did Straka to make the cut? Mine then would be Eric Cole top 20, and then Dusty.
I'd go Shank top 10.
Top 10, Shank, Cole, top 20, Straka to make the cut.
Sounds good to me. Yeah. No, I think
good
that's
to
good.
me.
Yeah, that gets everybody in the mix there.
What is Straka's let's just see what these cut numbers are here. I go down a little bit.
I like that one. Mixes in a few different things here.
Okay, so I don't think he's on the list of that, but that is good because that
we
means
can make that work, right? Like, yeah,
it'll be better.
Make that work. We'll make that work.
I
like that. We'll get a number up on social, and
so let's do that then. It'll be Straka to make the cut, Cole top 20, Shank top 10.
Love it. I absolutely love that.
Let's do it. That should be a pretty good number. Excellent, Patty. As always, man, things work out, bud. We'll talk next week.
Sounds good, boys. Thanks for having me as always, and enjoy the golf. Although, Dusty, I was listening to the show, I think it was on Monday. You got quite the CFL schedule this weekend.
Yeah, I'm in Regina, Winnipeg, and Vancouver. So lots of CFL football to bet on, and we'll have our CFL episode tomorrow. So that'll be a good one. So
yeah, we will be banging all that out. Hey, what is the Open next week or the week after?
Oh, the week after. So I forget the other event that we get, but we also get the Scottish Open as well.
That'll be going as well, right? There's two events
All those guys go over. They usually play the Scottish Open and then
do
they
the
play
Open,
it.
yeah.
And just one note on kind of us getting to the Open in a couple of weeks. There's a live event in London this week that you can bet on outright winners on CoolBet right now. But I placed a bet. Was it, I guess would have been last week or the week before. Taylor Gooch to win the Open. This guy has been absolute dynamite on the live. I think he has 3 or 4 live event wins this season. He was my guy last year that I was hammering out bets for him to finish in top 10s and top 20s. Broke my heart when he left. I cut ties with him. I was sad. I was upset. But now that we're getting this merger and everyone's going to be back on the same side, I think I'm going to be back on being a Gooch guy. And so I bet him to win the Open. I forget what the number was, but I would certainly suggest doing it because if he wins or even has a solid showing in London this weekend, I think his number could really plummet and you won't be able to get nearly as good as the numbers he can now.
No, that's a good idea. He has won 3 times on the Live Tour for what that is worth. And by the way, if you're interested in the Live London event, Brooks 8-1, Cam Smith 9-1, Bryson 10, DJ 10, and then there's Taylor Gooch at 12-1. Mito Pereira is interesting. He is one of the guys that did not qualify for the Open Championship. So maybe this will be a bigger deal for a guy like Mito, and he might be in the mix. 18-1. I mean, these are small field events. I don't mind a number like that for guys that the rest of the group might be sort of focusing more on getting ready for the Open Championship and, of course, the team event. By the way, can I just say something quickly on Live? So on Sunday, because it was the long weekend, I was whatever. I'd been out somewhat late, and I'm flicking around the TV, and the live broadcast was on, and I sort of knew that Gooch was on it. But I'm looking at the scoreboard, and Gooch was like -10, and the Range Goats as a team were -9, but they were right in. But the team that won, like, I guess my point is, I'm not sure that they're adding correctly when it comes to these team events, because the team that was in first place on the board had 3 guys that were totaling -12. The lowest guy in the top thing was -1. So essentially, those were the players that were under par. So the 4th player of this team was allegedly 4 under par, but there was nobody 4 under par on that team on the list. So for a league that is putting so much into this team concept, no one knows who's on the teams. They don't show, oh, this is what the Range Goats are doing, and show what each guys are. Like, they're half-assing it so bad with the team thing. And I'll be honest, I'm kind of into the team thing if they promoted it more and we knew about it. But first and foremost, get the adding right. That is very important in the sport, in the game of golf. So as I say, we only have individual numbers. You can't bet on Smash GC to win the Invitational right now, or the Range Goats, of course, my favorite. But anyways, Liv, I don't mind the broadcast. It's very different. It's so good. But
I love the fact that, like, we've talked about Liv like 4 times now this year, and the most we dove into it was probably just now, and it's because you got home super late on a Sunday night. Like, that sums up Liv's availability over here. You know what I mean? Like,
it wasn't live. It was right after a replay of the Rod Peterson show on the Game Plus network.
Game Plus network, yeah. Well, you got to catch Roddy's replay late at night, right?
I'll check out Rod's show. Pat's on. Pat Mayo Experience is on there as well, and it is the Canadian home of Live Golf. Because we don't have the CW right now. Anyways, it'll be fascinating to see what the future of that is, because as I say, I really do think that there are a lot of really interesting potential, especially if you had the top players doing it. But I think they're totally missing the boat on the way they're promoting the team play, which was supposed to be the anchor of all of this. And there's a lot of money on the line for it, and it's sort of a complete afterthought. And while watching it, even for a long time, you have no idea who's on the teams and what's happening on these other spots that actually does affect the team stuff. So here's my live rant for the day.
Shouldn't be that difficult to organize, I would think, but I guess they're having some issues. Patty, I'm glad you stuck around for the live rant, man. We'll chat with you next week. See you later, buddy.
Alrighty, see you, boys.
That's Pat Gregoire from Cool Bet. There's just a quick look at our picks just to kind of recap. Henley 16-1, Shank 28-1, Kirk at 33-1, Huss is on Aberg at 25-1, Hadwin at 28, and Straka at 50-1. That exclusive that we just put together, the boys will have that up early this afternoon. We'll make sure we tweet that out, and we'll get some action in on that one as well. I also, while we were talking, I do most of my golf betting while we're doing this episode live. I got in on Henley versus Moore in the first round. Henley at like -140, -137 or something. So something else you can look at, some of those first round matchups. Us tomorrow, we'll be talking a little Canadian Football League. We'll pick the entire week on our Thursday episode tomorrow. There's some big numbers this week. I think there's 3 teams that are touchdown favorites heading into this week. I think it's the 3 games that I've got. So I'll tell you this right now. I guarantee they'll be exciting because I'm going to call the shit out of them. But at the same time, this is pretty big numbers.
Yeah, we may have to just jump on the underdogs, because you always seem to have thrillers. I think there's a good chance that at least 2 of those will be right now. And again, we'll talk about this more in May picks tomorrow. But Riders are 7-point favorites on the Elks. Bombers 8-point favorites on the Stamps. Ticats shortest number of the week, 2.5-point favorites against Ottawa. And the BC Lions 7.5-point favorites against Montreal. So we'll hit a big week in the Canadian Football League with only 1 team on the bye tomorrow on the program. Looking forward to it.
We'll talk to you then, buddy.
Later, dude.